Warning: the following content may not be suitable for all listeners and contains crude humor that may be offensive to some. Listener discretion is advised. This is Satire is Not Dead. Welcome back to Satire is Not Dead. Thank you for joining me. It is a Saturday afternoon, this June 27, 2020, and I just wanted to talk about the condition of this country, and it's not so much this country as it is worldwide thing. What's happening here is not unique. It's happening in other countries, but I can only speak in relative terms as to what's going on here. So, in simple terms, this country is upside down right now. In ugly terms, it's fucked up. What's happening is there are these groups, these groups of people, and I'll say exactly who they are in just a few minutes. Things that are happening have nothing to do with what started things. It's kind of like whenever you get into an argument with your spouse or your significant other over something so tiny. And I'm not diminishing what started it all. Don't think that I'm doing that. But it elevates, it blows up into this thing to where when you get to the point where it is now, you can't even remember what it's about. And I think that's where we are. And one of the major catalysts of this whole equation is our fucking politicians. And I'm really for the last, I don't know, 4, 5, 8, 6 years, I've really despised politicians. And I'll explain why in a few minutes. I know this is this podcast is called Satire is Not Dead, and I can justify what I'm saying right now by saying that this country is a parody of what it once was. It's when I was a kid, it was completely different. There's these. Where they came from, how they started, I don't care, I don't know, and I'm not choosing sides on anything. But these fucking Antifa people, anti-fascists movement, and they have a hoodie on with a long sleeves covering them down to their fucking hands, and they're throwing rocks, bottles, fucking whatever, Molotov cocktails or whatever they can, and it pisses me off because these guys will not show themselves, and it's no coincidence that these guys wear long sleeves. And I was in the military a long time ago, and even in police work, one of the basic identifying markers of people is if they have tattoos. That's how they identify them, because 12 people can have the same tattoo, but it will look different on each and every one of them. So these little fuckers, these Antifa assholes, these pussies, go into these areas and destroy things with these long sleeves. And I'm telling you, they have these tattoos down to their, all the way down their arms. When you look like you're wearing a Persian rug or an old lady's giant doily, then you're overcompensating for whatever it is. And tattoos are not cheap. And the reason I mention it is these guys that go into these areas and do this shit, throw rocks, throw whatever. The men, quote unquote, are pipe cleaner armed, spindly legs, skinny jeans wearing guys. What's ironic is the women who are participating in Antifa are more butch than the guys. What is that? But also, if these kids can have sleeve, they call it a sleeve tattoo, and up their neck, under their chin, look like, I don't know, it's retarded. They look like they have a blue flame coming up their neck, under their chin. Tattoos are not cheap. Where do they get the money for this shit? Do they work? What kind of job do they have that they can just take off and go destroy stuff and not have any repercussions? My opinion is that these little shit asses, they come into these cities and destroy stuff, and at the end of the day, or whenever the cameras stop recording, they go to their six-figure suburbs and throw a steak on the grill, have a beer, and get a good night's sleep. And they go back and do it all over again. Because there's no fucking way that these guys are living in the areas that they're destroying. And I sat here for a long time listening to, music like Death Clock to get into the... into the mood to do a podcast. And what does it say about a person who listens to Death Clock and Tenacious D to get them into an upbeat mood? But I love metal. I'm a metalhead, even though I don't dress and walk and talk like them. I've always been into heavy metal. But listening to these, Death Clock and Tenacious D, I stumbled across one of the old Rage Against the Machine songs called Killing in the Name Of. And my point of putting this on a satirical podcast is my belief has always been, and I heard a man once do a lecture, that art and entertainment is often a barometer of where society is going. And he was a Christian man. He didn't buy into entertainment and music, but he would watch and observe it and kind of get a reading on where society is going. And I believe that. And case in point, I came across Rage Against the Machine's Killing in the Name Of. And this is from 1992. And here we are in 2020. You can look it up, and I wish I could, get around the fair use laws and just include it in my podcast, because it's such a great song. I probably listened to it 10 times before I actually start recording. The lyrics in that song are so kind of, I don't want to say prophetic, but they have a good reading on what's happening now. The beginning of the song says, some of those that work forces are the same that burn crosses, which to me, my interpretation is people are basically shitting where they eat. They're destroying property that is in their vicinity, their neighborhoods, and it makes no sense. It's like the hillbilly who has a fight with his wife and decides to destroy his own kitchen because he's pissed off at his wife. Where's the logic in that? And especially right now with all the, I don't want to get political, and I don't want to pick sides, but all the bullshit with the police force, in killing in the name of, there is a chorus. Those who died are justified by wearing the badge. They're the chosen whites. That to me spoke volumes, because there are people out there who are, no matter what race the cops are, fucking fighting them, throwing shit at them, doing everything they can to discourage the police force. And it, you know, black, white, Chinese, Japanese, it doesn't matter. If you're a cop right now, you're fucked, because you're a cop. You're nothing else. And that really fucking burns my ass, because these are the people, when these pussies who are destroying things and raising hell everywhere, when they get in trouble, what are they going to do? They're going to call the cops. They want the same people that they are hating to rescue them. And later in the song, Killing in the Name, and by the way, the title of the song, Killing in the Name of, is an open-ended sentence, which tells me that these, you know, it really matches up with what's happening now. These fucking dumbasses out there who have no idea what they're fighting for. They don't know. They're just being prompted, and for, you know, with a 21st century word, triggered by the powers that be to do things, and they're doing it. But later in the song, Killing in the Name of, the chorus goes, and now they do what they told you. And everybody that's listening to this, if you haven't heard it, look it up. It's a fantastic song. It's like if Filter and Black Sabbath had a child, that's what this song would be. And I love it. It's a great song. But the chorus goes, and now they do what they told you. And it repeats itself, but then it goes into, now you're under control, and now they do what they told you. And that's exactly, it fucking drives me nuts. What's happening? These people are out there, activists, quote unquote, they have no idea what they're doing, what they stand for. If you cornered one of them and asked them, what the hell are you doing? What is your belief system? They couldn't tell you, because they're being paid, and they're out there just destroying shit because they're being paid to do so. And they're these, and I'm probably wrong in some cases, but they come across as rich kids. The ones I've seen, Antifa, have a mask, but you know, what I can see above the mask and under the hoodie is white. And these are the fucking kids, these guys who are the ones who are the privileged part of society. And it's really frustrating, and I hate to do that in this podcast, but like I said, this country is a parody of what it once was. During World War II, shit went sideways, and men were drafted. They were forced into the military, and what happened? Women stepped into their places in the workforce and got shit done, and we won the war. Even if you don't understand that, think about the September 11 terrorist attacks. This country was unified. I mean, there was a certain percentage of the society that, you know, was kind of isolated and pushed off to the side, but as a whole, you know, the majority of Americans was together on that. That was 2001, 19 fucking years ago. And here we are, so ignorant that we're allowing people, politicians is what it is, to convince us to destroy ourselves from within. and it really bugs me. It's disheartening. It's kind of entertaining in some ways because there's a lot of retards out there doing stupid shit. But I personally know of people who had experiences as far as just hate, potential hate crimes, and in the medical community, where it's a real thing. It's a madhouse. It's insane out there. And, where we are somewhat insulated from, these major metropolitan areas, but it's starting to, flow down into where we are. But it doesn't change the fact that people are out there just doing irrational things. I don't understand. I will never understand people who are pissed off about something and go around the corner and destroy a person of the same race's business. It makes no fucking sense. It's just boiled down to the haves and have-nots. You have a business, but I don't, and I'm going to destroy your business. It's frustrating. It's been a very bizarre year. 2020 is this thing that needs to be stomped on the face. And things are ramping up right now to where it's deja vu. But regardless, that's as far as I'm going to go with that. And I hate that I had to do that. But really, this country, man, the World War II veterans that are still living must be absolutely flipping out on what's happening. I can't see them doing what they did, the sacrifices that they made, and watching this shit, this nonsense. Several years ago, I quit watching television. And I shit-canned cable. Done away with it. We stream movies. Social media has enough news feeds on it that you can glean what you need and see what's going on. If it's something important, then you can play it and it's there. I really sympathize with World War II veterans who are watching this bullshit, this circus of a country that is happening right now. And it's not Republican, it's not Democrat, it's not Libertarian, it's nothing but the powers that be wanting us to keep us you know what it is? We are the if you've ever had a cat and you had a laser pointer, the laser pointer keeping the cat busy on the wall is what we are right now. That's what these fucking retards and these stupid people out there don't understand. They're being kept busy while there's other nefarious bullshit going on being passed in legislation, so that we don't pay attention and do anything about it. Now, as far as doing anything about legislation and bills going through, basically, what could we do? Probably nothing. But we'd at least be aware of it and then flood the congressmen and representatives, whatever's office, with phone calls, emails, whatever. They're untouchable. That's what burns me. I mean, I wish I could just go to Washington and freaking walk into the office of one of my congressmen and lean over the desk and poke him in the chest and say, "Hey, you, remember me? I fucking voted you in. You work for me, you cocksucker." But you can't do that. There's no way you would get close enough to even utter those words to someone at that level. But we're being manipulated to the point that everyone forgets that we're together. They forget that it's not black against white. It really is not. And I know I can't identify with certain people in certain aspects of society and all that. but there's a lot that's over and done with. It's very troubling. It's very troubling that there are people who believe that things are still going on that used to go on. And let me tell you something. Look in the history books. Look at documentaries. There was some ugly, ugly shit, ugly stuff that went on. Hell, in the 50s. That's not going on now. Oh, it makes me, it's discouraging. It really is. And I have to look away sometimes, most of the time, and just distract myself with things like, Death Clock and Tenacious D. Like I said, what does that say about a person that where you use those that kind of music to keep you in an upbeat mood? Oh my God. What a mess. What a fucking mess we are in. Which leads to an article from The Onion. The title is Resigned Pew Research Study Has No Fucking Clue What's Going On with 15% of Americans. Which, I know it's, a parody, a satire, a satirical article, but the 15% would be realistically low. Washington, classifying millions of citizens around the country as total goddamn mysteries. A resigned Pew Research study released Friday found that it was impossible to determine what the fuck was going on with 15% of Americans. After an exhaustive year-long venture, we are still as confused, if not more confused, about what the deal is with these with all these indecipherable weirdos, said the lead researcher Jenna Kirkman, before throwing arms into the air and calling a large portion of Americans lost causes. This is fiction, but it's so true. According to our very frustrating research, a large portion of Americans are just freaks who will never be understood, no matter how hard we try. Are they happy, sad, old, young? Unfortunately, because so much of the nation are just total fucking randos, we may never actually know. At press time, Kirkman added that the remaining 85% of Americans were basic as shit, allowing researchers to easily parse every detail about their boring, miserable lives. And that brings me, my thought pattern, to what... I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I'm not against conspiracies also. But people that think that these smartphones, yeah, they listen. I know it. I talk about things and I look at it on social media and it pops up. Okay, fine. But what low-level FBI Dumbo is going to sit there and you think someone is actually physically listening to your boring, freaking mundane lives? No one's doing that. No one cares. Your life is nothing. My life is nothing. It's boring. It's just life. I know this podcast has been a bit of a diversion, different from what I have been doing, but I wanted to showcase how the foolish times that we're living in right now in this country, and also to get some things off my chest, some thoughts, some frustrations, but I will be in the near future moving over to a network called Cinescape Media, and so I'm not quite sure if I'm absolutely leaving Podomatic, but I will be hosted by Cinescape Media and become part of their team, which I'm very excited about. It's a group of guys that seem to be like a good bunch of guys, and I look forward to working with them. But if you like what you're hearing, if you want more of what you're hearing, and next week I'll be back to my regular format, doing satire, even though this country is basically a satirical drama, ridiculous. So please follow me on Podomatic. Look for me on Cinescape Media soon. And please share, download, and like my podcasts if you like what you're hearing. So I will be speaking to you again very soon. I'd like to leave you with a short audio representation of what's happening in this country right now.